You saying you beat me is an understatement. I'm pretty sure you thwacked me pretty good.
well, he had a lot of practice. He had a lot of practice in college, you know.
This program is something that's all of ours. The alumni, the fans, the former players. I want millionaires coming out of this program, both from the draft and then in the big leagues. Like, that's what we're talking about here. And you've heard me say this before, but I am obsessed with player development. It doesn't mean that winning is not important. Winning is critically important. It's critically important for the program, for our alumni base, and as part of your development.
All right, we are back for another episode of the On Deck Circle. I'm Christian Helsel here with Sal Biasi, and we have a very special guest on today, Head Coach Mike Gambino, the leader of Penn State Baseball. So, Coach, thanks so much for being on. I do have a quick question for you as we get going here, because I want to see if you remember something. You spoke at my dad's organization's conference years ago. And while you were in town, we played ping pong and I beat you. Do you remember this?
Oh, I do remember speaking. I do remember ping pong. And I actually think that you saying you beat me is an understatement. I'm pretty sure you thwacked me pretty good.
well, he had a lot of practice. He had a lot of practice in college, you know. The cage was right down the hall, but there was a ping pong table at the other end of the hall. He was on that table a lot.
I remember once, like, I kind of walked into a buzzsaw. I kind of went sideways real quick for me.
Well, I'm glad you do remember that. I take a lot of pride in the ping pong, but Coach, certainly your first season at Penn State last year was very exciting to watch. You guys made a run there at the end. This year's off to a great start. Talk us a little bit through just the process of building this program, and where you feel like you guys are headed.
Last year, we played great at the end. The thing about last year was a steady build of just consistently getting better. That's what I was really proud of the boys about. I've said this to a couple different people, or a couple different sort of places I've spoken. I think the thing that I was most proud about last year, we opened up in Cary playing Monmouth. And I'm saying this as, like, their head coach is a buddy of mine. He and I were joking about this after. Like, it was just kind of ugly. Like, it wasn't a good baseball game. Like, for both, like, it just wasn't a great played baseball game. He and I were, like, joking about it afterwards. And we walked them off, and we won the game. We beat them in the 10th. And our guys were they told me, like, they were genuinely surprised that they won the game. Like, they won a close game, won an extra innings. Like, I remember one of the guys grabbing me after. I was like, Bino, can you believe we just won that game? And I was like, kinda. Yeah, kinda. So that's kind of where we started. When we lost to Nebraska in the Big Ten championship game, when we walked off that field, when they recorded the last out to end the game, our boys were genuinely surprised we didn't win the whole thing. Like, you could feel it. Like, even when, even in the ninth, Adam goes up and he brings that home run back and he's come, like, there was no doubt we were scoring a run in the ninth to either scoring one to keep the game going or two to give us the lead, whatever it was. Like, you could just feel that the guys just sort of decided along the way we were just going to have our head down and continue to work and get better and get better and get better and get better. So, like, I thought we were playing good baseball at the end. I did. I really did. And so that was kind of last year. And that was sort of the start of, like, all right, boys, like, here's how we're going to do it. And as far as where the season's going to go, how obsessed with player development we are, how obsessed with, the thing. And you carry that into this year. What I talked to the guys about was we have our goals, right? This team and this program, which are, kind of separate. They're linked, but they're two separate things. This team only has one chance. This program is something that's all of ours. The alumni, the fans, the former players. And what this team can do to help the program move forward is critical. But this team's goals are, we're going to talk about winning Big Ten championships. We're going to talk about being in regionals and hosting regionals and going to the College World Series. Those are goals, but our mission is, by the end of the year, each of us individually and all of us as a group have done everything we can to sort of wring that towel dry to reach our potential. Like that's the mission.
With that being said, Coach, like from watching the last 2 seasons, with you coming in, bringing guys in and ultimately bringing the team together, like you're saying, like I think, ultimately what you're doing is you're setting up a new standard, a new expectation in the program. And, like you said, last year I watched early on and I watched the struggles. I watched kind of the small failures and stuff like that. And as the season kept going, just like you were saying, like, I'm a Penn State alumni. My brother's a Penn State alumni. Like, I follow the season. I have some connection to some guys in the program where, like, you guys got to the Big Ten tournament, that last weekend of the series, sweeping Maryland, where, like, I was looking at that series and I'm like, oh, are we gonna get in? And then when you guys punched that ticket into the tournament, like, I just thought after that first win, how the energy picked up, the adrenaline got going, the excitement, and I thought it was pretty cool to see how, like, your process and your culture, is ultimately showing up on the field, where guys are getting more and more competitive, where guys are fighting for it, where, they believe in themselves. They're starting to believe more in Penn State, in the Penn State program. And, I think that's a big tribute to, your process, your coaching staff, your development and stuff like that, because, you know how easily it can go the other way too, but it's truly, it's resiliency and, it's having that mindset and that goal to keep getting better, the next play, the next level, the next standard. And, that's something as a Penn State alumni, I'm proud to see that, we're doing and we're getting out there and, we're proving it to people that, hey, we could compete on the biggest stage. So I think
a couple things that you hit on there that are really important to me. As a former player, you talked about you still have some connections. I want all of the former players to know and understand they always have connections, directly and indirectly, to the roster. That's really, really important. This is all of your program, right? It's all of us. So that idea that, when you said, like, you'll always have that. When you're 70 and you look at those guys on the field, like, they were you and you were them. It's the same, they're all the same kids, right? That's first. And the second thing is, as a former player, it's important to me that it's always us, right? When you talked about, are we going to get in, like that, I liked that you just said that. And I want all of our former players to always refer to, because again, when you talk about the team, yes, like, Sal, you're not on this team, but you're always part of this program.
Yeah, no,
right? And this team will move on, and the next team will come in, but the program is the program.
For sure, dude. When I was sitting there last year on the couch watching the game in the Big Ten tournament, Bryce Molinaro goes grand slam, big fly. I'm jumping off the couch. My whole family's watching. That was a cool moment, and to see a kid who ultimately went to the same high school I went, and kind of, ultimately went to St. John's out of high school. He didn't necessarily fit in there. You guys picked him up, and he's been a tough kid his whole life. He's been hitting since he's been 8. My little brother and stuff played travel ball with him, and then seeing him grow up and mature in there, kind of on that stage, I thought that was something that was pretty cool.
He's a really good baseball player, isn't he? And I think honestly, the thing, what happened to St. John's with him, and this is not any knock on St. John's staff, because Mike Gambino is a good friend of mine. But sometimes these kids who have had success get to college, and you guys know this, it's just harder. Oh, yeah. And all these guys have been the best players their whole life, and for whatever reason, it kind of rattled him a little bit his freshman year. And I think the thing that we saw when we got here is, he kind of thought he might be a good ball player, but wasn't really sure anymore after struggling. And you mentioned that term failure, both in the season last year and with all these guys. Like, it's hard for guys when they get to college to realize, like, you are going to struggle. You're going to get your butt kicked. You're going to get knocked down. That's part of the deal. And that's each failure, struggle along the way is the lesson. And we talk about it each game, no matter what happened, whether we play well or not. Like, don't miss this lesson. If we came out and scuffled and struggled and did whatever we did on a day that didn't go as we wanted, we're not going to be happy with it, and we're not going to accept it. But don't miss the lesson, because they're too valuable to miss. And he took those lessons through his struggle, and man, he's a really good baseball player right now. I mean, he can hammer baseballs. He's playing great defense. He's doing a great job on the bases, stealing. He's not a tremendous runner, but he's turned into a good base runner and can steal some bags in the right spots. He's a really good baseball player, and like you said, a tough, competitive kid. He's a wrestler.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think the rest of the roster too, is kind of showing that same resilience where like the offense right now, it's pretty dynamic. You guys do a lot of things. I think the extra base hits are up a ton. I think home run numbers are up a ton. And, obviously even the small things, you guys are obviously doing the small things a lot better, with ultimately the record right now early in the season and stuff. But, ultimately kind of what you're saying, that process of learning from failure and like understanding, like, even if the numbers aren't there, like you could still be getting better. You could still be progressing. And then ultimately, those numbers and the statistics and, the output is going to show up. And it did last year in the tournament when it mattered most. And I like the momentum we got rolling right now.
You talk about, and I like that you mentioned that. So, and I think language is really important. And we're pretty intentional when we talk about details instead of small things or little things. And when you talk about little things, it makes it feel to these guys, whether we mean it or not, like it's not impactful, right? And when we talk about hammering details, the small details can change your baseball game. Paxton Kling did a really, really good job on a ball driven to the gap with nobody out and the bases loaded against Indiana in a one-run ball game. So runner from third scores. Paxton does a really good job on his read, is able to have a touch and go tag at second and move up. Next hitter, sack fly to right. And we end up scored 2 runs without a hit. And that all came down to a base running. And that's a detail with the read off the bat and where he needs to be when the ball's in the air to make sure he's in a spot to go back and tag with, things that you guys would know that we talk about work on, but in a spot where nobody out, he's in position to tag instead of position to score, which he would have been with one out. And he moves up. And again, is that a little thing or is it a detail? But when we talk about it as a detail, that changed a baseball game. That gave us that his run tied the ball game up. Now, I know we ended up opening the game up later, but at that point, that's a huge, huge detail of something that he did correctly that helped us win the baseball game. So the fact that you're saying that, those things are really, really important to me. And hey,
yeah, no,
when we hit 5 or 6 home runs in a game, I'm a way better manager. Right? Like I'm all in on home runs, but there are days that those are just tough to come by. So we need to be able to win the baseball game with situational hitting, with 2 strike at bats, with running the bases, with throwing the ball to the right base, with splitting runners, with throwing through cuts, with all those things that that are what I believe are really good, hard, fundamental baseball. And that resiliency aspect, when we talk about our ethos here of being gratitude and grit, right? Like, can we be a tough, gritty baseball team? Can we respond well instead of reacting poorly when things don't go our way?
Yeah, no, for sure. And Paxton's, he's a guy that me and Christian, we both known since he's been a young kid. And, we've coached against him. And one of my favorite games when actually COVID was canceled, canceled spring training, they sent us home. Me and my brother, we started coaching my little brother's travel team that summer, the Northeast Pride 2022 roster, and we went down to Georgia. We ran the table a little bit, and we had a face-off with the Canes. And Paxton Kling was like their dude. Like, he was arguably their best hitter, their best player. And Derek Cease actually pitched that game. He's another guy on the roster. And, dude, I remember how good he was there. But, like, how is he now as he's matured, as he's got older? Like, how big of an impact to your program is Paxton Kling coming in?
Our program.
Our program.
Before you answer that, I'll tell you, when we saw that he entered the portal, our group text was blowing up. You think he's coming to Penn State? You think he's going to Penn State? Being a Martinsburg PA kid, and we're all like, nah, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But that's a huge testament of what you're building. The fact that we can bring him home is awesome. So back to South.
I think the first thing we have to mention when you talk about Paxton Kling, and I'm going to say this, and I've said this before, I don't think Paxton comes here if Adam Cesare doesn't come here. And I think when we talk about impact on our program, one of the, arguably the most impactful transfer because of the timing of it, and where things are going, one of the most impactful transfers this program has ever gotten, will ever get, is going to be Adam Cesare. I get announced on July 3rd. I talked to Adam probably the 6th. I mean, I talked to him before some of the staff was hired. When we had gotten on the phone, and because he was at Wake, and we played against him and knew the kid from high school a little bit. But so when Paxton went in the transfer portal, the first text I got was actually from Adam. I was like, dude, Paxton went in. And I didn't know Paxton at all. I'd never talked to him before. There had been some scuttlebutt out there that he might go in, obviously. And he's like, I'm on it. And, he talked to him that day, and then I talked to Paxton that day, and then the process started. And, and it's Adam came, talk about Bryce, Joe Jakonski. Like, you started having these guys that had left the state start coming back. And, now you're talking about, like, Penn State could be a real destination for portal guys. On top of that, if you look at some of the guys last year that had the best year of their careers, Travis Lindsman, JT Marr, Adam, like, these guys come back and kind of went off a little bit. And so now when Paxton went in, we had the conversation of what we believe this program can be, and that really vision, and, all of us in this program should be very grateful what Pat Kraft and Vinnie James have decided. I mean, what this program is going to do and is going to do in the future has very much to do with their vision, and them deciding that the baseball is going to be really important and investing in the program. But so we had Paxton at campus. I want to say a week after he was in the portal, and then I did a home visit like a couple days later, and then he went and visited a bunch of places, a bunch of SEC places, and then I remember he texted me and said, "Hey, I want to come back to campus again." And I said to the staff, I'm like, "We're going to get this kid. We're getting this kid." And you could just feel it, and like I said, there was a lot of it was. You guys know, in this state, people have so much pride in Penn State. And when Pat hired, even before Pat hired me, we were talking about this. He had said all he had heard, even when he took the job, was, "Man, if baseball ever got going here, this place would go nuts." And Paxton, talked about that. He's like, "Yeah, I didn't really consider it and really look at it, but man, like, what happened there was fun last year." And he saw the crowds. You talk about changing this program, what our students are doing, and the fans in this town. I mean, we had 4,900 people there on opening night on March 4th last week. Yeah, so, like, awesome. Now the people in the portal are like, yeah, and people in the portal are like, wait a minute, I can go play in front of 5,000 a night?
Yeah.
Right? And, like, the Dollar Dog Night's big, but people are coming. The cool thing that happened with Dollar Dogs, and Rebecca and our marketing team has done an unbelievable job. That kind of became a thing, but then what people are talking about is like, man, like, that's really good baseball, and it's fun to watch, and it's a fun team to be around. So now Dollar Dog Night is Dollar Dog Night, and it's always going to be a cool event, but people are coming other nights too, and people are coming out to watch the ball club, and when we come back home next, we're home Tuesday, Wednesday, not this week, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, and then Michigan State comes in. Like, play's gonna be banged down on Friday night, so. It's this entire group coming together. So Paxton's talking about the investment in the program. He's talking about, what he thinks Penn State baseball can be and how important it is in the state. And then we just talked about player development, how we think we can help him get better and where we think we can make improvements in his game. And it's not a knock on LSU or Jay. Sometimes you just need a change of scenery, right? It happens in the big leagues all the time.
Yeah, dude, you see that all the time in professional baseball. You see guys get traded and they're in single A, and 3 months later they're in the big leagues, and you're like, what the heck happened? And it's just like he got a new scenery, a new set of grass, a new set of eyes, and
sometimes you just
better.
sometimes you just need to breathe a little bit. You know what I mean, right? Like, right, and the SEC. The SEC is the SEC. It's the Big Ten's getting better. The SEC is the best baseball conference in the country, and I'm not gonna hide behind that. We think we can compete with them, and we think we can beat those teams when we get chances. But the flip side of that is the SEC is a tough place. It's hard to breathe in that conference. Everybody that's there will tell you that, right? It's the best tagline, and maybe in the country it just means more. And there's good and there's bad to that. And sometimes when things go sideways there, it's not a great place to get things back on track. And I think Paxton, the tools, you talked about him in high school. I mean, the tools are loud, and they've been loud his whole life. And now he's starting to play baseball, and he's starting to have fun. And there's a looseness to his game, and he's, and it's, honestly, he's just getting going. I mean, he's had a good start, but I think two guys on this roster that you're going to see with like a steady sort of climb throughout the year, I think Paxton and Ryan Weingartner, I think, are two guys that you're just going to see like get better and better and better. And I think you're going to pick your head up, in the postseason and look at those two boys and be like, "Holy cow!"
How important was it for you to ultimately bring back to the state like one of the best players in his class? Where
it's funny.
The highest.
I don't think I fully. I'm still. I'm here and I'm still learning and understanding it, like in the good way, like just how much people in the state follow. Two things that happened after Paxton got back. One, somebody sent me like a local sports report from like the Erie, PA area of like our transfer portal. Like there's like the sports, like the nightly sports in Erie was like covering, and I was like, And then I saw somebody that works at Penn State I've become friends with who does some stuff down in Harrisburg, and he said, "Hey, I was down in Harrisburg the other day, and and some of the state reps were talking about like your summer in the transfer portal and who you guys are adding." And I was like, "Okay," and like the fact that many people all over the place are talking about Penn State baseball, it has nothing to do with me and what we're like. That's the power of the brand of Penn State that you all know and understand. You've grown up in it. I'm a year and a half into it. But it's awesome. It's to have a state that loves and cares this much about a university, and it's such a great baseball state. Everybody knows how great of a baseball state this is. We have great high school coaches. We have great players. And I'm learning how much they look towards Penn State, and that's cool.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, Penn State's it's tradition, it's culture, it's it is. It's the biggest brand in this state, and I agree with you. Like, I look at how many guys I played with from the state of Pennsylvania that just went on to college, to professional baseball, and just continued to be exactly who they were. And, I think it's a tough state. I think it's a gritty state. And, like you said, just how, everybody takes pride in Penn State. I think the players from our state take pride in themselves and in their development and what they want and their goals. And, I think the more and more guys we can get out of our state to stay home and to keep continuing to build this program, I think the sky's the limit, because I don't know a better place than Medlar to host a regional and to keep pushing forward to the College World Series.
Hey, man, there will be a regional in Medlar, no doubt.
I believe it.
It's just a matter of which year and when. And then from the recruiting standpoint, this is a national brand, right? You wear a Penn State shirt or hat, and you go anywhere in the country, and I've learned this very quickly. Anywhere in the country, and you're going to hear somebody say "we are."
Oh yeah.
Right? It's pretty staggering. So
I can attest to that.
Yeah, we could recruit nationally, and we will cherry pick nationally, but our bread and butter is going to be the state, and we're not going to hide behind it. And if you look at, as we've sort of gone through, our 25 class hit the state hard, our 26 class is predominantly PA, and then from that class within PA, it's not just about getting the right kids. That's going to be critically important to us, right? It's not just taking the top 10 kids off whatever list it is, and it's who are the right kids. You mentioned that grittiness, right? We want tough, competitive, gritty, like hardworking, hard-nosed kids. I tell every kid that we're recruiting, if you don't want to play in the big leagues, don't come here. Like, if that's not your goal, if you're not driven like that, but this is not the place for you. At the same time, if this degree is not important to you, don't come here, right? This is a degree that everybody should be tremendously proud of. So if you're not academic at all, this is not the right place for it. And if you're not attracted to being part of something bigger than yourself, if putting the team and the culture in front of yourself is not important to you, then don't come here. But for the kids that fit those three things and are the best players in the state, those are the kids we want to go target.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, I was at a PBR event this weekend. They got 30 guys in the state. Greg Williams told me 27 throwing gas. We got a lot of talent in the state. The state keeps getting better. Penn State keeps getting better. It all makes sense to me.
I mean, even in my class, high school class, which was 2012, there are a lot of players just in Central PA that went elsewhere that, to be frank, I don't think considered Penn State at the time. But you're creating the atmosphere that people want to be a part of, and to hit on the passion behind Penn State. Growing up, if Penn State football lost as a kid, I would cry. Right? There's a lot of kids like that around the state that just have that burning passion for Penn State, and you're tapping into that from a baseball perspective. I mean, when we were there and the Spikes were still short season A, I mean, they packed that place out. People like baseball in Pennsylvania. It's a great baseball state. And for Penn State baseball to be kind of in the mix, people being excited about it. I mean, the fans being at the game, and from an alumni perspective and having more of a fan relationship with the team, I'd say that's one of the most exciting parts. Like, people are getting behind the team, and that fires me up.
Nebraska has led this conference in attendance for a long time, and I will tell you, having played in front of their fans are awesome. Like, I actually am really excited to go play out at Nebraska next year. I hope we get the chance to meet up with them, and this is not like a bulletin board material. This is like a compliment. I hope we get the chance to play them in the Big Ten championship again, because that was a great college baseball atmosphere. And I will tell you this, I think our fans can rival that. I do. I think the students, as this thing builds, like I talked about, getting 5,000-6,000 people every time, I mean, you and I both know if we play a game at home and it's 41, we're probably not going to have 5,000 people there. But again, March 4th, it was 54 degrees and there were 5,000 people there. It's not like it was 70, right? So having 5,000 people a night, every night in this ballpark is real. And again, when I go back to, this thing, as we build this thing out, takes all of us. It's the students on campus coming out that the kids in the portal or the kids in high school see and want to play in front of those fans. It's our alumni coming out and supporting the alumni events and coming back for our alumni weekend in a couple weeks, and and helping as we build out, as we build out, continuing to increase scholarships and NIL opportunities, and you guys have businesses that want to invest in these players. Like, it's going to be all of us getting together to build something that we're proud of. And I truly, truly believe, you talk about the fans, when we end up in the College World Series, we will wipe that place out. There's no doubt in my, and I don't think I would have understood that when I took the job. But having been here a year and a half, when we end up in the College World Series, there's no doubt in my mind that Penn State fans will wipe that place out.
Right across the street, we get 110,000?
Absolutely.
That's it. That's all we need. Get them coming out, win games like we are, keep building this process. The bigger the village, the better. And,
and here's the thing. It's not just football, right? Hockey goes to Philly, they sell it out. Wrestling goes to Madison Square Garden, they sell it out. Basketball goes to La Palestra, they sell it out, right? You can't get in women's volleyball. Wherever, like, our fans they're unbelievable. There's like I said, there's no doubt, and we're playing in Harrisburg in a couple weeks, and the people in Harrisburg have already said it's not even, the ticket sales haven't been announced. It's just on our schedule, and they're getting calls. So, we're going to sell this thing out in a couple hours. So, as we start looking at playing other places around the state, And then, and even we played down in Richmond last week. Their alumni association had an alumni event. 120 people came out on Saturday. There was what they say? I think there's 200 people in there, in the immediate area right around Richmond. 120 of them came out to the ball game. The place was loud. It was awesome.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
So, Coach, going back to when you first took the job here at Penn State, I would have to think that you knew that there are some challenges ahead. From a former player's perspective, I can look out on that field. I can watch 3 at-bats and tell that the culture is different. Those guys are aggressive. They believe in themselves. I don't know if it's as obvious to a fan, but from my perspective, these guys believe, they know. How did you right the ship so quickly and get it moving in the right direction?
Yeah. And I don't know about right the ship because, Coop's a really good baseball coach. And part of this is the investment that Pat and Vinny put in the program. And I'm a huge fan of Coop. And, this was building on the foundation that Coop and Robbie Wine and Coach Hindeline and everybody have built. So it's I don't know so much right in the ship as just continuing to build on what we have been building on in a program for years. But I think the thing that we talk about in the program to be very intentional, the guys they're gonna make mistakes, they're gonna fail. That's this game, right? There's younger players tend to think they have to be perfect, and so my thing is, we are gonna make mistakes. We're gonna learn from them, we're gonna get better. But our mistakes are going to be aggressive. That's how we're gonna make our mistakes, right? And we know it, and we understand it. So going back to what you're saying, we try to be very intentional about making them understand who they are as a player, right? We on the baseball field we call it identity. I also think, I talk about it in a broader scale of making them understand who they are, who their authentic self is. So Paxton Kling can't go try to be Derek Cease. Somebody mentioned Derek Cease can't be Paxton Kling, and Cole Mercado has a different game than Cole Wagner, right? So if we can be really, really intentional about making them understand who they are, what they do well, and then go be themselves. And then when you make mistakes, we're going to be aggressive and we're going to, consistently be in attack mode in everything we're doing. And then whatever mistake we make, it's within the values and principles that we all understand, and then we learn and get better. Right.
Yeah, no, I see that too. I see that, every weekend. It looks like, guys that really have a purpose. They're doing things with purpose and it's on purpose. And, when they do fail, at least it is aggressive and they look like they're learning from it.
That's what it is. Right. So, I'll use a base running example, right? If you make an aggressive base running play within our principles. Now, if you get thrown out trying to stretch a single into a double down 4 in the 9th, yeah, we're not going to be happy. But we know and understand that, right? We teach that. We drill those things. But, again, I'm just using Derek Cease because you mentioned him. Derek Cease had a dirt ball read the other day and got, we were up 2. Dirt ball read. The catcher made a really good play and threw him out by a couple feet. Awesome job, dude. Great job. Catcher made a really good play.
Yeah, it's baseball.
It's baseball. Now, if he does that down 4, again, different scenario. But if we teach those and we drill those and understand, nobody in our team is going to get yelled at. The old adage of we don't, you never make the third out at third base. If you're being aggressive and they make a great play and you're bang out at third base, awesome. Now we'll talk about your read, whatever. But you made your mistake being aggressive. Again, within the right spots of the game and take out situational baseball. But right, so. All right, if that's what we're going to do, then we're going to learn these things and we're going to figure them out together, and they're going to make their mistakes and they're going to fail and they're going to learn. Because the thing that I want most of anything with all these guys is to be out in the field and eliminate all fear, worry, and doubt. Right, and then when you do those things, then cool things can happen. Right.
For sure. Self-confidence, building people.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was so. I have another alumni. He comes up to the gym, Chicky DeGaetano. He actually threw in the draft league last year.
Yeah.
Continuing
love that kid
out and stuff. But that's some of the conversation I had with him, and what I'm kind of hearing about you is just how upfront and honest you are, and how you can have a conversation, with a player, whether it's good, bad, or indifference, and ultimately talk it out, come to a solution, and kind of make a plan. And, I like a lot about what I'm hearing about the program and, ultimately you, Coach, and how, this whole thing, how we're building this whole thing up. But I did want to ask you about Cole Mercado, because my man is raking. He's on fire.
Not surprised.
What about him? What allows him to do what he's doing in the box?
Well, one, he's healthy. I mean, that's a big thing. Last year he was hurt, right? So, he got hurt. If you look back, I can remember the play. He got hurt in the regional at Alabama his freshman year, diving for a ball. And then he just couldn't quite get healthy. And you guys know, when injuries can rattle you, right? Like, especially the first time through. So a lot of it was just about getting healthy. And even when he came in the fall, he still wasn't healthy. Getting back in to see a doctor, and so finally got himself healthy. That's the first thing. And then you talk about authentic self. Cole is, he's a baseball player, but he's like a tough, gritty, I'm just going to figure out a way to beat you baseball player. Right?
Never give up.
Never give up. Yup. Right? Like you watch him in a bat where he goes 0-2, and it's you can see him. It's all right, here we go,
in, baby.
Dig in,
dig in. Let's go.
Yep. And he just loves it, and he's taking really good pitches. His swing decisions have gotten really good. He's fouling off tough pitches, and and he is in a lot of ways who we want to be. If you're going to beat us, you better step on our throats, right?
Yeah.
His at bat, if you're going to beat him, you got to get him, right? And sometimes you're going to get him, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be hard. We flipped him up to the leadoff spot. It's funny, we put him 9 to kind of flip that order and get him going into Paxton and Wine to start the year. And I said to the staff at one point, I'm like, we're going to have to, if he's doing what I think he could do, and he's a 400 on base guy, we're going to have to consider, put him up the top. Well, now he's a 500 on base guy. He's on base at 470 right now. So so we flip him up there, and and the big thing is he's embracing who he is, right? Which you want all these guys to do. You want them to really, really embrace, who they are as a person, as a player, and then be that on the field, right? Because no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, if you try to be someone you aren't or something, you're just not going to be as good. Right?
Yeah, dude, that's hand in hand with injuries. Once the injury starts affecting performance, and then that performance starts affecting your mind, and
yep.
It sounds like as a whole though, Penn State got this guy healthy, got his mind right, and now he can breathe and go be exactly who he is.
Now he can breathe, and it's exactly what it is, and
that should be the goal for any player, right? Because just like Christian said, since 2012, all the guys going everywhere, guys go to Penn State and they go to the pros, where they have that outlet where if you're a Pennsylvania guy, you go to Penn State, you have every single resource necessary to keep getting better, to keep developing, and to keep moving forward in your own career, in your own journey, and create something really damn special on the way.
What you just said is important. I want millionaires coming out of this program, both from the draft and then in the big leagues. That's what we're talking about here. And you've heard me say this before, but I am obsessed with player development. It doesn't mean that winning is not important. Winning's critically important. It's critically important for the program, for our alumni base, and as part of your development. You can't fully develop if you're not coming up in big situations, in big spots, in big crowds, in tournament baseball. I want to win. I believe winning is a byproduct of elite player development. So that's the things that we talk about. We make our decisions and everything. Is how can we be elite in our player development systems and decisions and everything that we're doing to have all these kids reach their potential, and then go get paid. That's what I want. Like I said, we're used to. If you look at the last couple of years at Boston College, they were used to guys coming out and making millions of dollars, and big leaguers coming back and working out. We'll get that here, right? It just takes a little time.
And look at Penn State, like, and Christian, I think you could attest to it too, but like how many guys we played with that, like, one, they were uber competitive and maybe they didn't get drafted or signed, but wherever they went to work and the connections that they made through the program, through the university, like, there's some ultra successful people right now that came out of Penn State always. You know, always. The biggest brands in the world. Penn State, you could find them anywhere. I've never been in an airport with a Penn State shirt on and somebody's not yelling at me.
100%.
They
I
know
live in
everywhere.
Atlanta now. I see them everywhere. Where I have a Penn State license plate on my truck, and people honk at me, roll down the window. We are everywhere. Being in the business world now, meeting other people that are. I've never met a Penn State alum that didn't want to talk to you about it. If you're an alum as well, it is. We talk about it a lot, but it's underrated how huge that network is and how important that is, and just those connections after college. Both baseball.
I think I'll be able to give a somewhat unique perspective on that. Not unique because there's other people that have been like this, but at least for when I talk to our former players, like the fact that I didn't go here, that I'm learning this. It's sometimes I think you as former players and alumni, I don't say take it for granted, but you just think it is what it is. Like, oh, it just is. It's just Penn State. And being able to come in and I knew about, everybody knows Penn State and I'd heard about it. And you watch football games, but I hadn't paid a ton of attention to Penn State the rest of my life. In general, it's just right. When it's on TV, you watch it, and that's about it. But then to walk into it to see in a good way, there's a craziness that's fun to be part of.
Yeah, no, and that's what I said that to Christian, on the first podcast that we put together. But like when I stepped on Penn State campus in September, and I did my official visit, and kids were walking around the school. It was sunny out. I mean, the energy, like I don't know how I could have walked away from there and said no. But that's where I went, and I saw it firsthand where, like, it is unmatched. Like, there's a different energy, there's a different feel to the campus, to the school, and Penn State should be on top.
Now, Coach, going back to player development, what are some philosophies or things that you've implemented to be able to create this atmosphere of developing players? Because I think in baseball you have NIL, obviously a huge deal. In football, guys can make more money playing college football at some of these programs than they can professionally right out of the gate. But baseball is not really that way yet. So NIL obviously playing an important role, but I think player development is always going to roll to increase your draft stock as much as possible. So what are you guys doing to really separate yourself in that sense?
Yeah, two things. NIL is again, whether we like it or not, an important part of college baseball now, and there's an investment in our program in that, and it's something that we're looking to continue to build and grow 100%. Mm-hmm. That is tremendously important. From a player development standpoint, the way we look at, if we try to sort of boil it down, right, is what are the things that each player does well? What are the things we need them to do well? What are the things that we can test along the way to show here's specific things that we can improve? And then what is our plan to attack those things, right? So if you look, for example, so offensively, right, we're looking at swing decisions. We're looking at how hard you're impacting the baseball. We'll look at how quickly the barrel is moving and is the path where we want it to be, right? And then testing those things and figuring it out, both from the eye test and from our analytics, is it where we want it to be? We use analytics, and the same thing sort of on the mound, is how is their body moving? How is their arm moving? How is the ball coming off their hand? And what are the things that we can do to improve those things and strengthen those things? We try to make sure we're testing as much as we can along the way. I'm a huge believer in using our data across the board, whether we're talking about weight room data, jump data, Proteus data, ball flight data, and then comparing that data to when it doesn't, a lot of times it matches up with what you're seeing. The part that's really, really fun is when it doesn't. And then what can we dive into to see? And then what is the stuff that we can't see, right? I mean, one of the things that we looked at with Cole Wagner was a tremendously explosive player. He's strong. But with all our testing, we found out he wasn't as, in the rotational plane, he wasn't as explosive as we thought he could have been. So that was something that we attacked with him because his swing decisions were sound and the ball was coming off his barrel. He was making really good barrel contact a lot. What is something that we can improve with him? And that was something that we focused on. I'm just like a small example, right?
Yeah, no, and that's something I recognize too. Every weekend, like you first of all, you look at the guys in the box and the position they start in, like their loads are just better. Like they're guys when I was on the mound, in college or professional baseball, and you're like, okay, like this guy's ready to go. So like I got to execute right now. And there's other guys who really don't get into those positions where. That's a testament to the player development where, like, there's some big league swings there. They might not be big leaguers. They might not be doing those things yet and stuff like that. But, like, they're on the right steps. They're taking the right steps. Their process is right where, I look at Paxton Kling get in the box. He's hinged over. He's rotating like a beast, and he's attacking the baseball. Same thing with the majority of those guys where, like, when you put guys in the right places, like you can allow them to do the things that they can do, and that's what it looks like.
Nick Puccio and Jake Palomaki do an unbelievable job. Pooch focuses a lot more on our offensive identity and running the offense. Mock spends a little bit more time diving into each individual swing. It's a really good sort of pairing for that, and they work together on offensive plans. And Will Giles from the pitching side is a young superstar. He's as good as any young pitching coach I've ever been around. And those are our conversations. What can we do to maximize this player and what he does, and then what can we do to improve the places that we need to help him get better at? And those are just like, it's constant conversations, and it's, our pitching group meets once a week, our hitting group, our offensive player group meets once a week. We meet as staff 3 times a week. Our strength coach, our trainer. We have people from our, that's the other thing Pat Kraft has brought in. We have a full high performance group here, sports performance group at Penn State. So people looking at our data and breaking down our data for us. So if there's an imbalance in somebody's jump data, we can find something. If somebody's, for whatever reason, if their jump data is not where it needs to be and we need to back off a day, or, we can look at all these different things to help these guys reach potential.
Awesome.
That's big when it comes to resources, too. I mean, like fatigue mass fitness. So when guys are fatigued, when they're not recovered, they're not going to perform. And, I know when I was at Penn State, like we had every resource, we needed to nourish our body, to fuel our body, the fueling station, all the access to food and all that stuff that we ultimately had. Like that stuff, it's so important. And you don't necessarily realize how important it is when you're in college. But as you continue to get older and your body matters more and more, like that stuff separates teams. It separates, at the highest level, where.
So they know this. They know that we're making these decisions based on player development, and I tell them all the time, we're not missing an opportunity to get better. And things that I'm asking them to do is, there's nothing about, like our meals, right? Like, we're going to eat what the dietitian says when the dietitian says we should eat. That's her job, and she's right, have people around you that are smarter than you and let them do their job. So when I talk to these guys about what it is we're doing, all right, hey, Sam has got this meal set up for us. You're going to come here, you're going to eat, and then we're going to go do our pregame and then come back. It's set up for them to reach their potential. So I'm not asking them to do anything. Nothing about this is what I want or do this because I said it. It's like, no, man, like this is what's going to help us reach our potential. Let's go do it.
And that's how guys buy in. That's how they become consistent. When they have that bigger goal, but they understand that like every day is a part of the process, and those small daily wins are, what allows you to do what you did last year in the Big Ten tournament, and what we're going to do this year and going forward.
Coach, we're going to wrap this up here shortly, but I do have one more question, not necessarily related to on the field, but who came up?
Are we talking about ping pong again?
No, I wasn't going to bring it up again. But I appreciate you doing that.
That's stupid backhand. He's a little spinner like
Sal
that.
can attest to my ping pong game. I don't even think he wanted to play me, to be honest. But Dollar Dog Night, who came up with that?
Rebecca Pleshy and our marketing team. She crushed
Are you
it.
obsessed with hot dogs? Like,
Unbelievable.
what's up with you, bro?
What's that?
You love the Dollar Dog Night.
Dude, I'm a big fan of hot dogs.
You know, it's funny though, and I talked to the boys about it when I first got here. And I think it's like what Rebecca has done. She's changing our program. Honest, like how much work she puts in behind the scenes to, like the game production at Medler is unbelievable. And you look at the video board, and you look, it's awesome. It really, really is. And I said to the guys though, I'm like, look, this is before we had played a game at home. And a couple things. One, people had told me Dollar Dog Night is fun and people coming out. We get I remember people were saying like, hey man, we get like 800, 900 people for Dollar Dog Night. Like that's pretty cool. And I was like, okay, like that's cool. I didn't know. I'm just learning about the place. And so I said to the boys I think it was our first or second practice. I said, look, I want to be clear. I think it's awesome, and I had met Rebecca. I'm like, I think it's awesome that we have a marketing department that cares enough about our program that they're trying to figure out ways to get people in the stands. That's program changing. It is. It helps recruiting. It helps everything. But you guys understand that they have to give away free food to make us come play. I mean, they have to give away free food for people to come watch us play.
Well, like, it depends. It depends if how big the glizzy is.
But like seriously, I'm like, boys, like our job is to put a product on the field that people can get behind. So Dollar Dog Night is a fun night, but it's not the only reason people are coming to see us play. Like I want to take pride in Dollar Dog Night because it's a fun thing, but it's not the only thing we're known for. And I told the guys like very like sort of firmly, and the guys were kind of like, but like it can be a cool, fun night, and it's night, But we need to be winning baseball games, and we want people coming out every night.
Well, I think last year, I actually came out to a Dollar Dog Night maybe last year against West Virginia, and I mean there had to be 5,000 people at the game.
So that's going back to my point. So everybody, the first people saying, "Hey, we get 1,000 people, maybe if we're lucky."
Well, yeah,
so
when we played. You're right. It was my mom, my dad, Christian's mom and dad.
So we open up. So then we come back home last year. And we're playing okay early in the year. We take 2 out of 3 from Stanford. We open up on a Friday. UMass Lowell was in town for a non-conference, and there was like 1,500 people on a Friday night. And I'm like, and people are like, we never seen a crowd like this. And then it starts to go right. And then the next Tuesday, you had 3,000 people for Dollar Dog Night. And then it starts again. Then you start getting. Then it was like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. And then we're playing these other games. Now we're playing well, and the weather's getting nice. And it's not just on Tuesdays they're coming out. They're coming out on Fridays. And now we got 3,000 people there on a Saturday. And it's like, and now this thing starts to build. And that's what I think is really cool and fun.
I thought Saturday was one of our best showings always. Saturday was, once that weather started to pick up and get good, Saturdays people showed out. They came out to games.
Saturdays, the families in town are coming out. And it's great. And I will tell you this. I think Tuesdays are unbelievable. I think the students are going to take over Friday night. I think it's starting to kind of that 5:30 Friday night, right? Like I don't know if we can say it publicly, but their pregame spot could be Medler, and I think like it's.
I mean,
dude,
look
starting to
at
that feel.
Real.
Look at Philly in October.
I'm saying
Philly in October, the fans literally beat the other team sometimes. Right or wrong. It's unbelievable 100%. The energy, how they bring it out like that, and there's no way Penn State can't be a little Philly there.
We are the students and the fans are creating a real college baseball atmosphere here in State College.
Yep.
Yeah, that fires me up. That's awesome.
And it's supposed to be fun and exciting, and everybody can't wait to get to the game. That's what college baseball is. That's what I grew up believing. Why I wanted to play college baseball so much, and you're getting that at Penn State, and it's building and growing. We're super pumped about it. So,
and I think all of our former players should take pride in that because we're all doing it together, and we're going to need your help going forward as we continue to build this out.
Yep. So Coach, how could we help? When it comes to all of that stuff, what do you want us to do? Number one, I want the former players around the program as much as possible.
come to games, come see us. Check in with Wheels, come out in the field, come to practice, come to a BP, just be around it and be part of it. That's really number one, and that's my biggest ask is to take pride and saying ours is something that's important to me. I want us all to take ownership in that. We're all doing this together. We are.
Yeah, no, and I mean, last year I went to the golf tournament, that fundraiser. You could stamp that this year too, that I'm going to win it. I'm going to bring a bomb squad. I'm telling you, because I was a little upset that I didn't win it last year, and the number, I think it was a little spooky on the number that won it. But this year we're coming strong.
It's scramble, isn't it?
But I'm saying, how are we going to build that to, we get 100 teams, 200 teams in that, and because, I mean, that would be the real win. That's the real win I want.
Wheels is doing an awesome job, and the collective is, putting together a pretty good schedule for us, and I think we should get Wheels on here to talk about it at some point and talk about one of our all-time great players and nobody loves this program more than Ryan Wheeler, and everybody knows and loves Wheels, and I'm so lucky to be able to have him on the staff and help me navigate building this thing out and meeting people and understanding it. Honestly, like, he used to laugh at me the first couple of weeks here that like when I was like learning the magnitude of the Penn State brand, and he would laugh at me like, dude, you have no idea. Like, he's like, just wait. I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, I don't know, but he's is and will continue to be a huge piece in building this thing out.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. Coach, we know you got a game this afternoon, so go get them, but we can't thank you enough for your time. And we'll certainly have you back on, but till next time on the On Deck Circle, thank you.